Hello, and welcome back to Podfinder. My name is Philip, and I'm here to talk about Pathfinder 2nd Edition. This is part of a series I'm producing, covering the various deities in the Pathfinder role-playing game and its setting, the world of Golarion. Last time, in the second episode of Elf Month, I covered Alceta, the elven patron of the Ayudara, and, more broadly, the goddess of doorways and transitions. To conclude Elf Month, this week I will be discussing Ketephys, the elven god of hunting, forestry, and the moon. Before that, though, if you enjoy this video and want to hear more Pathfinder lore, consider subscribing or commenting below. With that out of the way, let's move on to the rundown. Ketephys, the hunter, is widely revered by the elves of Golarion, and particularly the elves of Avestan. He is typically reserved and soft-spoken, though his words and advice carry significant weight. He is the arch-nemesis of Treerazer, the nascent demon lord trapped on Golarion, and his pursuit of this enemy is one topic on which he is uncharacteristically boisterous. His other areas of concern are hunting, the moon, and forestry, and he encourages the conservation of natural resources among his faithful. Outside of his dedicated clergy, he is typically worshipped by rangers and hunters, and especially those whose livelihood relies on the harvesting of natural resources, like wild game. Inhabitants of remote elven villages, which engage in subsistence hunting, often consider him the most important of their gods. Ketephys is typically depicted as a tall elven man with russet skin. He dresses in simple hunting clothes, a leather or hide jerkin, fur leg wraps, and a gray feathered cloak. He always goes barefoot and carries a longbow in his hands. Instead of hair, brown hawk's feathers sprout from his head. His eyes are not the solid color eyes of the elves, but instead are the piercing golden eyes of a hawk. Ketephys is rarely, if ever, seen without his two closest companions, the hawk Falling Star and the hound Macho. Falling Star takes on the appearance of a golden hawk, and is highly observant. Macho is a silver-gray hunting dog with a keen nose and an especially terrifying growl. The three beings treat each other as equals and friends, rather than a hunter and his servants. Ketephys, and by extension Falling Star and Macho, make their home on Elysium, near most of the other members of the elven pantheon. His deific realm is called the Amaranthine Forest, and is a realm of rolling hills, deep forests, and blooming meadows of flowers broken up by clear streams and rivers. Days there are short, and are broken up by long nights lit up by a bright eternally full moon in a clear sky. The realm is populated by the souls of Ketephys' faithful, as well as the Azadas who call the realm home, and the animals whose souls Ketephys has claimed for his own. The denizens of this realm take part in competitive hunts to test and improve their skill, though the game is never killed or harvested. Ketephys makes his personal home in one of the many living cabins which have been formed from carefully grown trees, though none but the god himself has ever found his dwelling. Devout followers of Ketephys, called Ketephysians, typically live in close proximity to the natural world, and see themselves as part of a balanced system with nature. They see the acts of hunting and harvesting to be sacred and holy, and acts which should be taken with great care and reverence. A common saying among the faithful is, "The forest remembers," and it is commonly invoked to remind hunters not to take needlessly from the environment, for fear that nature might withhold its bounty in the future. In addition to this respect for nature, Ketephysians are often soft-spoken, and hold a reverence for the moon and the night more broadly. They are, much like their patron god, the sworn enemies of Treerazer and other invaders and corrupters of nature. While they are rarely eager to take up their bows in anger, they are always ready to wield them in defense of the forests and meadows they hold so dear. Temples to the hunter might easily be missed by outsiders, as they typically take the form of simple wooden structures nestled into the natural world. Decor is simple and understated, and might consist of as little as a single holy symbol placed prominently inside. Outside the structure itself, nature often runs wild, with fields of flowers or fallen trees dotting the landscape. Dedicated temples to Ketephys are relatively rare in the more populated areas of Kyonin, since he is typically worshipped together with Yulral and Fintaladlara. In the wilds, however, shrines to the hunter are more common. These take the form of stones arranged into his holy symbol, the outline of a hawk in front of a full moon. Legend has it that if a wanderer should become lost in the woods and find one of these shrines, they need only step into it and close their eyes, then spin around 6 times. When they stop spinning, Ketephys will face them in the direction of home. As Ketephys is a god of few words, his holy text is a bit different. The Ways of the Woods is a collection of every scrap of words he has ever uttered to his followers, collected into a single tome by his clergy. The memories of elves are long, so some phrases likely date back to well before Earthfall, or even before the arrival of elves on Golarion. A more well-known text is The Tales of Macho and Falling Star, a collection of short stories recited to elven children. These tales center around the misadventures of the titular hawk and dog, and each tale teaches a specific lesson about forestry, hunting, or the wilderness. Tales are typically structured around the idea that Macho's earnest impetuousness often gets him into trouble, forcing Falling Star to use her cleverness and observation skills to get him out. The Church of the Hunter is loosely organized, and is often the dominant religious organization in remote elven villages, which rely on hunting or foraging for survival. This means that individual churches are typically operated independently. Priests often host archery competitions, and actively demonstrate and teach proper technique with the longbow. They also teach skills related to hunting, such as tracking, stealth, and the harvesting of animal parts. Wastefulness is seen as a sign of disrespect to the forest itself and to Ketephys, so the preparation and harvesting of an animal is extremely important. In traditional communities, children on the cusp of adulthood are sent out into the wild to hunt game for their village. They are not allowed to return without a successful kill, and when they return, they must demonstrate proper skill in preparing the animal and turning it into a meal for their family. The pelt of this first kill is typically fashioned into a useful clothing item, such as leg wraps or gloves for the child to wear as they continue their journey into adulthood. The faith of Ketephys on Golarion is strongest among the elves, and especially among the Sovirian elves of Avestan. Their ancestral home of Kyonin and the surrounding forests are a center of his faith. The elves of the Mwangi Expanse, particularly the Ekuje elves, see him as more of a warrior god than a hunter, and while they lack the connection to Treerazer, they still take his more militant teachings to heart. Of his non-elven followers, almost all of them are Ayuvarans, or half-elves, who are welcomed among his faith. Outside of these, the occasional human, halfling, or gnome can be found among his faithful as well, though these are typically wanderers in the wild places of the world, and rarely settle down to form a community. Now, let's move on to Ketephys' history. The faith of Ketephys originated among the elves on Castrovel, in their ancestral land of Sovirion. His origins are unknown, and he has no known family members. His interest followed the elves as they migrated to Golarion, though he always considered Sovirion to be his main area of focus. As most of the elves fled Golarion to avoid Earthfall, Ketephys turned his attention back to Castrovel, and there it stayed for generations. All of that changed, however, with the arrival of Treerazer. Treerazer is a nascent demon lord, a demon on the cusp of becoming a true demigod. He once served under his father, the demon lord Ketephys, a lord of disease, fungus, and parasites. This service came to an end when Treerazer attempted a coup. Ketephys prevailed, however, and Treerazer wound up on Golarion, either as a punishment or in an attempt to escape his wrathful father's retribution. This arrival coincided with the elves' absence from Avestan, and after centuries of wandering, he discovered the forests of Kyonin, which they left behind. He soon learned of the Ayudara network and the Sovirian stone which powered it. Seeking a way to return to the outer rifts and restore his lost status, he devised a plan to capture the stone and corrupt the elf gates into portals to his old home. The elves eventually learned of this plan and were determined to stop it. Ketephys in particular felt the fires of righteous fury over the thought of the corruption of his beloved forests by the moldering Treerazer and his demonic ilk. The Sovirian elves returned in force to Kyonin, and Ketephys himself led the defense of Iadara, the capital city. The hunter and his loyal followers were successful in their efforts, and managed to drive Treerazer all the way to the swamp called Tanglebriar, where he holed up in his fortress tree of Witchbowl, where he remains to this day. The anniversary of Treerazer's defeat is celebrated by elves to this day as the holiday Reclamation. With the security of Kyonin restored, Ketephys returned to his normally reserved self. His life since then has been much less eventful. He rarely makes appearances on Galarian or Castrovel, instead using the creatures of the forest as his eyes and ears. He does this by shooting them with his bow. In these circumstances, his arrows leave not a wound, but a single pale mark in the shape of a crescent moon on the hide of the creature. This animal is, from then on, blessed by Ketephys, and he can see and hear the world through their bodies. He can even sense when they feel fear or anger. When followers of Ketephys witness such a creature on a hunt, they know to let it pass unharmed. These animals eventually join Ketephys in his deific realm, where they live on as his servitors forever. Mecho and Falling Star are known to mark animals in a similar way, leaving marks of their own on the animals' hides. Like I mentioned in my Findaladlara video, Ketephys is often worshipped in consort with Findaladlara and Yulral. The three deities take no issue with being worshipped as a pantheon, and even go so far as to share temples in larger elven settlements. Ketephys has been known to let each of these goddesses speak for him when they address others, since he prefers to quietly observe while saying little. Still, Ketephys takes issue with Findaladlara's insistence that she is a deity for elves only, since he opens his faith to all. You might expect Ketephys to get along well with Erastil, but their relationship is actually somewhat tense. The two of them see eye to eye on topics of hunting and conservation, and have even been hunting partners on occasion. Outside of this area, however, they have substantial disagreements. Ketephys sees Erastil's insistence on family life for all of his followers to be needlessly stiff and inflexible. He is pleased when his followers settle down and form a family, but also recognizes that this lifestyle isn't for everyone, and shouldn't be espoused as the greatest calling of all people. For his part, Erastil sees this flexibility as just the characteristic fleetingness of the elves, and scoffs at the idea that family might not be required for a fulfilling life. Even so, I suspect each deity would readily come to the aid of the other if they were working in defense of the natural world or their communities. Ketephys's relationship with Gozrah is more positive. The two deities share a great deal in common, especially their emphasis on the importance of conservation and living in harmony with nature. The two have collaborated in defense of nature on several occasions, both personally and through their churches. For similar reasons, I suspect he would get along well with Gendowin, the fey demigoddess of the Fangwood Forest in Nirmathas. Gendowin has taken action against Treerazer in the past, but was gravely wounded for her efforts. I could easily see her fey armies working with Ketephys's elves in a joint campaign in the future. Given that the event which sparked Milani's interest in adventuring was an attack by Treerazer, I suspect she might be willing to work with Ketephys as well, though she might still bear a grudge from her feelings of being abandoned by the elves all those years ago. Speaking of Treerazer, he is still Ketephys's sworn nemesis. The hunter has warned his followers to maintain a constant vigil in Kyonin, to remain on watch for actions on the part of the Lord of the Blasted Tarn. In fact, an annual gathering of Ketephysian priests in a hidden grove in Kyonin actually serves as an opportunity for them to pool their divination magic to get a better idea of what Treerazer is up to. Ketephys also watches out for the influence of Sith-Visug, Treerazer's father. While the two demons have been adversaries for years, the hunter realizes that a renewed alliance between them might unleash devastation upon Kyonin and Golarion more broadly. For players who might be interested in playing characters who follow Ketephys, here are a few useful details. For those using the alignment rules, Ketephys is a chaotic good deity, though he will also accept clerics of neutral good alignment. His edicts are to hunt and kill demons and undead, to support a forest's health, and to provide for your community. Conversely, to take more than needed from the wilderness, to hunt an animal for sport, or to aid Treerazer and his minions are all anathema to Ketephys. I should clarify, though, that non-lethal hunting can be undertaken for sport, and is sometimes done in the church as a training exercise. Ketephys's holy symbol, as mentioned before, is the silhouette of a hawk against the backdrop of a moon and sun. His domains are darkness, moon, nature, and secrecy. Ketephys's sacred colors are gold and silver. Among his followers, these colors are not prominent, however. Ketephysians more commonly dress in ways similar to their patron deity, usually in simple plain jerkins and leggings of a tight but comfortable cut. They typically go barefoot and wrap their legs in fur. Members of the faith who wear their hair long usually tie it back to keep it out of their eyes. Practicality is the name of the game. Clothing is typically made from animal hides or from other textiles made from locally sourced materials. Followers might incorporate simple silver or gold decorations into their clothing on special occasions, but even these will likely be understated. When Ketephysians wear armor, it will typically be light armor to aid in their movement through forested terrain, and will generally be constructed from leather, hide, or wood, though metal is not entirely unheard of. Ketephys's favored weapon is the longbow, and bows are far and away the most common weapons among his faithful. Though longbows are the most common choice for a follower, I suspect many of them are proficient in the short bow as well. Followers might also gravitate toward the spear or sling as other weapons useful on a hunt, while followers who find themselves engaged in melee combat might fall back on their hunting knife. As a way outside the box idea, a player might expand upon the use every part of the animal ideas of the hunter's faith by trying out the beast guns presented in Guns and Gears. Though how a beast gun craftsman might end up in Kyonin is beyond me. Ketephys's listed favored animal is the hawk, but he obviously favors the hound just as much. Beyond these choices, followers are always on the lookout for animals with moon-shaped marks on their fur, skin, or scales, as these creatures are thought to have been blessed by Ketephys himself. It is not uncommon for followers to attempt to win the loyalty of these creatures as familiars or animal companions. Class-wise, the Church of Ketephys is likely made up of an equal mix of clerics and rangers, and I suspect that the war priest doctrine is a bit more common among the clerics. I've seen no mention of Ketephysian champions, but I see no reason why they shouldn't exist, particularly among followers who live close to the Tanglebriar and stand as the bulwark against a potential incursion by Treerazer. I could also see a wood kineticist or a bow-wielding magus working nice thematically. Other classes might fit well into the faith of the hunter, especially if they take feats from some thematic archetypes like the archer, the eldritch archer, the horizon walker, the scout, the snarecrafter, or the herbalist. And any spellcaster with access to the primal spell list, like a druid or certain sorcerers, summoners, or witches, would be an appropriate choice as well. Elves make up the vast majority of Ketephys's faithful, and of those, Sovirian elves are the most common. Alige elves from the Mwangi Expanse worship the hunter as well, and they would fit nicely into a campaign set in the Magambia. Half-elves, Ayuvarans, can also be commonly found among his faithful. the rare human, gnome, or halfling in his church are generally lone wanderers, and might find difficulty being accepted among the elves with whom the hunter is normally associated. I could see sprites or leshies being drawn to the Church of Ketephys, especially those who are displaced or harmed by the actions of Treerazer. His connection to forests means the Ardande, the elemental scions of the Plane of Wood, might find acceptance as well. Finally, it might be interesting to create a character who is tainted by the blood of Treerazer or his demonic followers, a Nephilim who wishes to destroy their demonic progenitor and joins the Church of Ketephys to that end. Such a character would likely face a lot of social ostracism, but might be given the chance to prove themselves by an understanding priest. Followers of Ketephys are dedicated to their community, but their directive to destroy demons and the undead encourages them to accept an adventuring lifestyle if it is thrust upon them. They respect the delicate balance of the natural world and see excessive consumption as a heretical crime. They are the sworn enemies of Treerazer and his demonic hordes, and they are unafraid to put their skills to use in defense of the forests and communities they hold so dear. For GMs looking to integrate Ketephys and his followers into a campaign, here are some ideas. I've already mentioned Ketephys' heralds, the hawk falling star and the hound Macho. He has been known to send these creatures out on occasion to contact followers. More commonly, however, followers might experience his favor by observing the appearance of clear moonlight, the blooming of flowers, or the silent appearance of an animal. By contrast, his disfavor is signaled by hostile or difficult interactions with the natural world, like branches or shrubs seeming to grab at clothing, or ground giving way underfoot. The most obvious plot lines involving the Church of Ketephys revolve around Treerazer and Sith-Vesug, the hunter's greatest enemies. With the rising threat of the Whispering Tyrant around Lake Encarthen, it's easy to imagine that Treerazer might soon spring into action. It might be fun to run an adventure or campaign where Treerazer makes the unexpected move of attacking the Fangwood Forest in Nirmathas. This would likely catch the elves of Kyonin off guard, and would probably prompt them to work with Gendowin and her allies among the Knights of Lastwall and the Dwarfs of Highhelm to fight back the Lord of the Blasted Tarn. This could be a fun and extended campaign on its own, but what if it was only the first step in a larger plan? Depending on the level of response from the elves, they might be exposed to a sneak attack from Sith-Vesug, Razmir, or even Tar-Baphon himself. This would put the elves on the back foot, and would force the followers of Ketephys to make their way back to their homeland before they could fight on their home turf again. On a smaller scale, a party of low-level PCs might be contracted by a local lord to deal with poachers in a nearby forest. So long as this occurs somewhere near Kyonin, the PCs might receive aid from an elven follower of Ketephys, or one of the PCs might themselves be a member of his faith. This might lead into a larger adventure, or might simply be a straightforward quest which is mostly disconnected from a larger story. Either way, it could be a fun chance for inexperienced PCs to go out on a forest adventure. Finally, it might be fun to run an adventure or campaign which does a major shakeup of elven culture on Golarion. The Sovirian elves of Avestan have recently been attempting to reconnect with the elves of the Mwangi Expanse, who stayed behind during Earthfall. One of these peoples is the Ekajay elves, who live as watchful guardians against the threat known as the Great Darkness. Faith in Ketephys among the Ekajay is a bit different, as they see him as a warrior rather than a hunter. Despite this difference, they live lives very similar to those Ketephysians who stand against Treerazer. Their lives as guardians against an encroaching threat of mysterious origin might give them some common ground with their Avestani fellows. Should the Great Darkness or its agents begin making trouble, the Sovirian elves might volunteer to help their southern brethren, allowing Avestani Ketephysians to work alongside the Ekajay elves whose faith in the hunter understandably changed over thousands of years. A campaign like this would be a great opportunity for players interested in serious roleplay, exploring themes of cultural divide, divisions in faith, and renewed friendship between disparate nations. So, that's it. That's Ketephys, the hunter, the elven god of forestry, hunting, and the moon. He is typically a stoic, silent god, and rarely displays his emotions. This all flies out the window, though, when protecting his beloved forests, and when hunting the demons who would seek to corrupt them. His followers are likewise dedicated to protecting their communities from incursion by the wicked forces of the world, and seek nothing more than to live in balance with nature. Well, this concludes Elf Month here at Podfinder. I would love to round out the Pantheon with Yulral and Cernunnos, but unfortunately I haven't been able to find enough material on either of them to create a video I would be happy with. If Paizo ever does print those articles, then Elf Month will be back in the future. For now, though, I am going to take another detour into one of the most fascinating NPCs in all of Pathfinder. Up next is the Mother of Witches, Baba Yaga. And I'll warn you now, my script for this next one really got away from me. See you next time. Or should I say, do svidania, or do papachenia if you're cool.